Before we dive into this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It really helps support this kind of storytelling. Also, let me know in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? I'd love to see how far these stories are reaching. What if, in the middle of the night, you found yourself in a haunted hotel room with only the dim glow of a bedside lamp? Scared and paralyzed with fear, you are too afraid to get out and too afraid to stay in the room? Ghost stories always fascinated me, but I never believed them. Not really. But little did I know that would all change the night I stayed in the St. James Hotel in Cimarron, New Mexico. I had heard the stories, read about its notorious history, tales of outlaws, gunslingers, and gamblers who had met their violent ends within those very walls. The bloodshed, the duels, the Wild West lawlessness. It was like something straight out of a history book. I found the stories entertaining, a source of amusement, nothing more than old folklore mixed with exaggerated ghost tales. Like many curious travelers, I had dismissed the rumors as part of the hotel's charm, a clever way to draw in tourists looking for a thrill. Sure, people talked about strange occurrences, mysterious footsteps, whispers in the dead of night, objects moving on their own, but I had never taken any of it seriously. To me, it was all part of the Old West ambiance, just another spooky legend for effect. I thought it would be a fun, quirky experience. Nothing more than a night in a haunted hotel. After all, how haunted could a place really be? Little did I know, that night would make me question everything I believed about the stories I once laughed off. I told my wife about the idea, and she loves it. She loves adventures and new experiences, just like me. A night in a creepy old hotel seemed like a fun way to scare ourselves, she said. We checked in late that evening. We were excited. We tossed our bags on the bed and started exploring, joking about the ghost stories and daring each other to try and contact the spirits. It was around midnight when the first strange thing happened. Lily was lying on the bed, scrolling through her phone, when we both heard it. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. Not at the door, though. It sounded like it came from within the room, or maybe the walls themselves. I turned to her. "Did you hear that?" She nodded, her eyes darting to the bathroom door. "Yeah, where did it come from?" We waited in tense silence, listening for the noise to repeat, but it didn't. I tried to laugh it off. Old place like this, it's probably just creaky pipes or something. But the tension didn't go away. An hour later, feeling restless, I decided to step out. "I'm gonna head to the lobby," I said, trying to sound nonchalant. "Maybe grab a drink or something. You want anything?" Lily shook her head, not looking up from her phone. "No, I'm fine," Lily replied. "Just don't take too long. This place gives me the creeps." I left the room. The hallway outside, dimly lit and eerily quiet. As I walked down to the vending machines near the lobby, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being followed. Every step I took echoed, but sometimes it seemed like there was an extra footfall just behind me. When I turned to look, there was nothing there. I grabbed a soda and sat in the couch in the lobby drinking the cold soda, trying to shake off the creeping worry. Then I remembered that Lily doesn't want to be left alone and headed back upstairs. But as I approached our room, I noticed the door was slightly open. I was sure I had closed it when I left. My gut twisted. "Lily?" I called softly as I stepped inside. She was sitting on the bed, her face pale and her eyes locked on the bathroom door. "When did you come out of the bathroom?" she asked, her voice shaky. "I didn't see you when." She couldn't finish the sentence. I froze. "What? I didn't. I just got back." Her eyes flickered toward the bathroom again. "No, Nathan, I just saw you go in there, I swear." "You were in the bathroom." My blood ran cold. "Lily, I wasn't. I've been downstairs." "I know," she said. "You came back, and you said the vending machine wasn't working, and then you went into the bathroom." "Honey, I just came back. The vending machine is working just fine. Here, I'm still drinking the soda." Suddenly, she burst into tears. "Nathan, I just saw, I swear I just saw you entering the bathroom." Her words break between her tears. My heart started thundering in my chest. The bathroom door was half closed, but through the crack, I could see the edge of the sink, the mirror reflecting nothing but darkness. I walked toward the door, my breath coming in shallow gasps. I reached out and pushed the door open. The bathroom was empty, but the air in there was different. Thicker, colder. The mirror was fogged up, as if someone had just had a shower. Slowly, I stepped closer, and as I wiped the condensation away with my hand, my heart stopped. I stumbled back, the silence in the room now deafening. I turned to Lily, but she was already standing, her face white as a sheet. "Nathan, we need to leave, right now." I didn't argue. We grabbed our things in a panic, rushing toward the door. But just as I reached for the handle, there was a knock. 3 slow, deliberate knocks coming from the other side. Lily's hand gripped my arm, her fingers ice cold. "Don't open it." But I had to know. I twisted the knob and pulled the door open. There was nothing. The hallway was empty, stretching on in both directions, dimly lit and silent. My breath caught in my throat, and a deep, unnatural chill settled over me. I closed the door and turned to Lily, my voice barely steady. "We need to get out of here now." Without a word, she nodded, her face pale with fear. We grabbed what little we could and bolted from the room, leaving most of our belongings behind. Nothing seemed important anymore, not when the air in the hotel felt wrong, like it was pressing in on us. Every creak of the floorboards under our feet, every faint sound in the hall, made my skin crawl as we moved as quickly as we could toward the stairwell. As we reached the stairs, our footsteps echoing in the eerie silence, I suddenly froze. There, just a few steps ahead of us, something moved. Lily squeezed my arm tighter. "Nathan, what is that?" Her voice was barely a whisper, trembling with fear. In front of us stand a tall shadow stretched across the stairwell wall, moving fast, too fast as it descended. It wasn't just the speed that terrified me. It was the way it moved, with unnatural, jerky motions, like it wasn't walking but gliding. The shadow was impossibly tall, nearly reaching the ceiling, its form long and distorted, as if the light itself had been bent to create it. We watched in horrified silence as the shadow darted down the stairs, its shape flickering in and out, growing larger as it moved deeper into the darkness below. Every instinct screamed at me to turn and run, but I couldn't tear my eyes away from it. It wasn't just a shadow. There was something more. I could feel it, a presence, heavy and cold, moving through the air with each step it took. I shook my head, unable to speak, my mouth dry as I tried to understand what we were seeing. The shadow kept moving, disappearing around the corner of the next landing, as if it was leading us deeper into the hotel's unseen depths. For a moment, we stood there, paralyzed by the sight. But then, as if the spell broke, I grabbed Lily's hand and whispered, "We need to go, now." We didn't look back again as we raced down the stairs, the heavy silence behind us broken only by our ragged breaths and the distant creaking of the building. We finally managed to burst through the front door, stumbling into the cold night air, gasping as if we had just surfaced from deep underwater. The darkness outside felt like a strange relief compared to the oppressive atmosphere inside the hotel. The streetlights flickered dimly in the fog, casting long, wavering shadows that seemed harmless now. We didn't stop running until we were several blocks away, our hearts still pounding in our chests, our breaths ragged and shallow. Once we were far enough, we collapsed onto a bench, struggling to catch our breath. Neither of us spoke. There were no words that could make sense of what had just happened. The silence between us was heavy, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was as if we both knew that whatever we had experienced back in the St. James, we could never truly explain, or even dare to revisit. We never talked about that night again. Sometimes, late at night when the house is quiet and I'm alone with my thoughts, I think back to that moment when we first saw the shadow. I can still hear the faint creak of the floorboards and the distant echo of something moving through the hotel. I tried to rationalize it, tried to convince myself that it was just a trick of the mind, a shared hallucination brought on by fear. But deep down, I knew better. There was something in that hotel, something ancient and dangerous. If you've made it this far, congratulations. You're one of the chosen ones to be named a lord or a lady of the horror community. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Built in 1910, Waverly Hills Sanatorium was originally designed to treat tuberculosis patients at a time when the disease was a death sentence. As I walked through the sanatorium's decaying halls, I felt an overwhelming sense of the history that had unfolded here. The walls seemed to hold on to the pain and suffering of those who once lived here. Treatments for tuberculosis were sometimes as bad as the disease itself. Some of the experiments that were conducted in search of a cure seem barbaric by today's standards, but others are now common practice. Patients' lungs were exposed to ultraviolet light to try and stop the spread of bacteria. Other treatments were less pleasant. Balloons would be surgically implanted in the lungs and then filled with air to expand them. Needless to say, this often had disastrous results, as did an operation where muscles and ribs were removed from a patient's chest to allow the lungs to expand further and let in more oxygen. Many patients did not survive it. There are many inaccurate reports as to how many people died during Waverly Hills' decades of operation. Some claim that tens of thousands died with the walls of the hospital. The hallways were eerily silent, the kind of silence that feels heavy and suffocating. Each room I entered seemed to whisper its own ghostly tale. I remember stepping into one of the old patient rooms, and an icy chill filled the air. It felt as if the room itself was frozen in time, holding the memories of countless patients who had suffered there. One of the most infamous features of Waverly Hills is the death chute, a long tunnel used to discreetly transport the bodies of deceased patients. I must admit, the moment I stepped into this dark, narrow passage, a shiver ran down my spine. The darkness was almost palpable, and I could feel the air grow colder with every step. Many visitors claim they've heard footsteps echoing through this chute, and as I stood there in the pitch-black tunnel, I couldn't shake the feeling that something or someone is moving around me. I was alone in the patient room when I suddenly felt a cold, strong hand grip my shoulder. My heart started racing and I turned around quickly, but no one was there. The room was empty. The cold feeling didn't go away, though. It stayed, like someone or something was still with me, watching from the shadows. The air felt thick, and every sound seemed to vanish, leaving nothing but silence. My skin tingled, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was just out of sight. Was I imagining it? Or was something truly there, something that belonged on the other side? It's in moments like these that the line between the living and the dead becomes a blur, making you question if it's real or just the mind playing tricks. I didn't wait to know what it was. Panic took over, and I bolted for the door, my footsteps echoing through the empty hallway. The cold followed me, like invisible fingers brushing against my skin. I could feel the presence getting closer, and each second felt like an eternity. I sprinted to my car, nearly tripping in my haste, and fumbled with the keys before getting in. As soon as the engine roared to life, I slammed my foot on the gas, driving as fast as I could, desperate to put as much distance as possible between me and that place. Even as I sped down the dark, empty roads, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see something, or someone, chasing me. The cold dread from earlier still clung to me like a second skin, and no matter how far I drove, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. When I finally reached my hotel, I practically stumbled out of the car, my legs weak, and rushed to my room, locking the door behind me. I collapsed onto the bed, but there was no relief. My mind kept replaying the eerie whispers, the shadow that had moved, the icy grip that still lingered on my shoulder. I lay there in the dark, my eyes wide open, every sound making me jump. The soft hum of the air conditioner, the creak of the floorboards. It all felt too close, too real. Sleep didn't come. I couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed me, something that wouldn't let go. And as the hours ticked by, I realized I wasn't sure if I had truly escaped, or if the nightmare had just begun. As the hours dragged on, I lay there, eyes heavy but unable to close, the weight of my fear pressing down on me. The soft hum of the air conditioner felt deafening, the creaks of the floorboards too deliberate. Every shadow seemed alive, every sound a threat. I was trapped in the prison of my own mind, convinced that whatever had followed me wouldn't stop until it had me. But then something changed. A soft light began to filter through the curtains, signaling the arrival of dawn. I hadn't even realized how long I had been lying there, lost in the terror. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the tension in the room started to ease. The shadows that had seemed so menacing just hours ago began to retreat, fading in the growing light. I sat up, blinking at the sunlight spilling across the floor. The fear that had gripped me all night began to dissolve, and for the first time in what felt like days, I took a deep, steadying breath. The air in the room felt different now, lighter, clearer, as though something dark and oppressive had finally lifted. I pulled myself out of bed, my legs still weak but steadying with every step. Moving to the window, I pulled the curtains open and let the full light of morning wash over me. Outside, the world was alive again. Birds were chirping. People were walking down the street, and the hum of life was unmistakable. The dread that had followed me seemed to melt away in the warmth of the sun, and for the first time since that nightmare began, I realized how much of it had been in my head. Exhaustion, stress, and the weight of my own fears had twisted reality into something dark and unrecognizable. I splashed cold water on my face in the bathroom, watching my reflection this time without fear. It was just me. Tired and a little worn, but whole. No lingering shadows, no eerie whispers. Just me. As I stepped back into the room, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. A message from a friend, asking how my visit to the Waverly Hills Sanatorium was, reminding me I wasn't alone. I smiled, the first real smile in what felt like forever. I sent a quick reply, promising to meet up later. I had made it through the night. The fear was gone now, replaced with a quiet calm. With the sunlight warming my skin, I grabbed my things and headed out. I'm not the only one who has had unsettling experiences here. Paranormal investigators who have explored Waverly Hills describe it as one of the most haunted places they've ever encountered. One investigator told me, "Waverly Hills has an atmosphere that's truly unique. There's a constant feeling of being watched, and strange noises are a regular occurrence." Despite its abandonment, Waverly Hills continues to be a magnet for those seeking the paranormal. The ghost stories, the scary atmosphere, and the residual pain of the past make it a place that draws people in, even decades after it was closed.